The quality of the assessment instrument and method is very important, since the evaluation and judgment of a teacher on his students are based on the information obtained using these instruments. To my colleagues, classmates, fellow educators, and our course facilitator, Dr. Eva Fabriquel, I am Mr. Fred Di Valentino, and I will be discussing to you the topic revolving around the 12 principles of high-quality assessments. But before we proceed to the discussion, let us talk first about traditional assessments. Traditional assessment criticized do not really assess student learning. Traditional forms of assessment have been criticized due to their limitations to truly assess student learning. Traditional assessment is supported with other tools to give realistic assessment. To come up with a more realistic assessment, other forms are used to supplement the traditional approaches. Quality in assessment is very important, and quality will be improved by following the criteria. So here are the different criteria that we need to follow in order to ensure quality in our assessment. First, we have the clarity of learning targets. Learning targets are the outcomes the teacher wants his students to attain or acquire. Assessment should be clearly stated, specified, and centered on what is truly important. Assessment can be made precise, accurate, and dependable only if what are to be achieved are clearly stated and feasible. It starts with clear and appropriate learning targets, which include both what the students know and can do and the criteria for judging student performance. To this end, we consider learning targets involving knowledge, reasoning, skills, products, and effects. Learning targets need to be stated in behavioral terms that denote something which can be observed through the behavior of the students. And we should bear in mind that cognitive aspect must be targeted. Like we have the lower order thinking skills, which include our knowledge, comprehension, and as well as application. So we have here the knowledge. Knowledge refers to the acquisition of facts, concepts, and theories that we want students to know. For example, knowledge of historical facts like the date of the EDSA revolution, the discovery of the Philippines, or scientific names of milkfish, the chemical symbol of an argon, and many others. All fall under the knowledge. Next, we have comprehension. Comprehension means understanding, involves cognition or awareness of the interrelationships. Refers to the same concept as understanding. It is a step higher than the mere acquisition of facts and involves a cognition or awareness of the interrelations of facts and concepts. Next, we have the application. Application refers to the transfer of knowledge from one field of study to another, or from one concept to another concept in the same discipline. And we have also here the higher order thinking skills, or the HOTS, which include our analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. What is analysis? Analysis is the breaking down of a concept or idea into its components and explaining the concept as a composition of these concepts. Analysis means breaking a topic or idea into components, or examining a subject from different perspectives. It helps us see how the whole is created from the parts. It's easy to miss the big picture by getting stuck at a lower level of thinking and simply remembering individual facts without seeing how they are connected. Analysis helps reveal the connections between facts. Next, we have the evaluation. Evaluation means valuing and judgment or putting the worth of a concept or principle. Evaluating means making our judgments about something based on criteria and standards. So this requires checking and critiquing an argument or concept to form an opinion about its value. Often, there is not a clear or correct answer to this type of question. Rather, it's about making a judgment and supporting it with reasons and evidence. Next, we have the synthesis. It is the opposite of analysis. It entails putting together the components in order to summarize the concept. Synthesizing means considering individual elements together for the purpose of drawing conclusions, identifying themes, or determining common elements. So here you want to shift from parts to whole. Let's have now the categories of learning targets. When content standards have been formatted to function as a curriculum, they take the form of unit or lesson level learning targets. These targets represent different kinds of learning. Some call for learning at the knowledge level. Some call for the use of knowledge to reason or solve problems. Some call for the performance of a physical skill. And some call for the creation of a product that meets standards of quality. In addition, we have aspirational goals for students, which can be thought of as dispositions. These categories of learning target types were first proposed by Stiggins and Conklin after an extensive study of the various kinds of learning expectations reflected in classroom instruction and as well as assessments. So we have here the reasoning, which is the student's ability to use their knowledge. Reasoning level learning targets define thought processes students are to learn to execute, or the ability to use knowledge and conceptual understanding to figure things out and to solve problems, as in scientific inquiry, math problem solving, and comprehension of subject matter text. Next, we have the skills, or students' ability to demonstrate what they have learned. So performance skill level targets require the development of behavioral or physical skills, such as, for example, playing a musical instrument, reading aloud fluently, conversing in a second language, or using psychomotor skills. We have also the products, which is the student's ability to create. So product level targets call for the creation of tangible products such as research papers, models of geometric figures, and works of art. We have also the affects, or students' emotional attainments. So disposition level targets, or the affects, specify the development of the attitudes, interest, and as well as motivational intentions that support learning success. Next criteria is the appropriateness of assessment methods. Match the methods of assessment to learning targets. For starters, we will define learning objectives as the expected outcomes desired after instruction, and we will define assessment as the process of evaluating student progress toward mastering learning objectives. For example, if today's lesson was entitled The Art of Baking Cookies, its overall objective might be students will master the knowledge and understanding needed to create an edible and tasty cookie. So one assessment of these outcomes could be students developing, then baking their own original recipe of a cookie. So we have here a table showing the different assessment methods and as well as the learning targets. So let us remember that assessment methods go with the suitable or correct learning targets. And of course, our learning targets should also coincide with our assessment methods. So we have here an example showing the assessment methods and as well as the learning targets that it is measuring. So for example, our objective supply. So we can measure the effects. Objective select, we can measure the knowledge and skills of our students. Essay, we can measure the knowledge and reasoning. Performance based, we can also measure the reasoning of our students. Oral question, we can measure skills and products. And through observation, we can measure knowledge. And through self-report, we can also measure the knowledge of our student. So additionally, objective supply can also measure the knowledge. Same with the objective select. Essay can measure the reasoning skills of our students. Performance-based can measure skills and products. Oral question can measure knowledge and reasoning. And observation can measure knowledge as well as skills. And self-report can measure effects. So remember that our assessment methods should be appropriate for our learning targets. So the third criteria will be the balance. Assessment methods should be able to assess all domains of learning. A holistic lesson developed by a teacher requires the inclusion of all the three domains in constructing learning tasks for students. The diversity in learning experience or such learning tasks help create a comparatively well-rounded learning experience that meets a number of learning styles and learning modalities. So we have here the Benjamin Bloom, which includes the evaluation, synthesis, the analysis, application, comprehension, and the knowledge, which is the knowledge. At this level, the pupil is requisite to show memory of earlier learned substance by remembering facts, conditions, fundamental thoughts, and answers. After knowledge is the comprehension, wherein learner is requisite to illustrate understanding of the facts and thoughts by categorizing, comparing, translating, understanding, giving descriptions, and conditioning main ideas. After comprehension is the application, wherein the level requisite via new knowledge, resolve problems in new circumstances by applying acquired information or facts, strategies, as well as policies in a different way. And after which is the analysis. So here, the pupil is likely to observe and break knowledge into parts by recognizing purposes, reasons, or inferences, and find confirmation to support generalization. We have also the synthesis. Here, the individual pupil gathers information mutually in a different way by joining fundamentals in a new model or suggesting alternative solutions. And lastly, we have the evaluation, which is the peak or the topmost. The pupil is needed to present and protect opinions by manufacturing judgments about knowledge, strength of thoughts, or excellence of work based on a set of principles. We have also here the L.W. Anderson, which of course includes remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So a group of cognitive psychologists, curriculum and theorists, and instructional researchers, and testing and assessment specialists published in 2001 a revision of the Bloom's Taxonomy with the title A Taxonomy for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. So this title draws attention away from the somewhat static notion of educational objectives, in Bloom's original title, and points to a more dynamic conception of classification. So the first is remember. So remember means retrieve relevant knowledge from long-term memory. So the cognitive process they mentioned. Next is the understand. So construct meaning from instructional messages, including oral, written, and even graphic communication. We have also the apply, which you can carry out or use a procedure in a given situation. And next is the analyze, meaning carry out or use a procedure in a given situation as well. And evaluate, make judgments based on the criteria and standards. And lastly, create, meaning to put elements together to form a coherent whole, reorganize into a new pattern or structure. So that is the L.W. Anderson model. Assessment methods should be able to assess all hierarchy of objectives. So take one of your deconstructed standards and decide which method would be best for assessing the ultimate target. Determine which situations the embedded targets would need to be assessed separately. If they need to be assessed separately, determine the best methods. So we have here the types of objectives. So these domains of learning are the cognitive or the thinking, the affective or the social, emotional, and feeling, and the psychomotor that includes physical or kinesthetic domain. So the first one is the cognitive. So this is the most commonly used domain. It deals with the intellectual side of learning. So the cognitive domain involves the knowledge and the development of intellectual skills. So this includes the recall or recognition of specific facts, procedural patterns, and concepts that serve in the development of intellectual abilities and skills. So there are 6 major categories of cognitive processes actually, starting from the simplest to the most complex. So we have, of course, knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and the last is the evaluation. Next, we have the psychomotor. This domain focuses on motor skills and actions that require physical coordination. So the psychomotor domain includes utilizing motor skills and the ability to coordinate them. The subdomains of psychomotor include perception, set, guided response, mechanism, complex overt response, adaptation, as well as the origination. And lastly, we have the affective domain. This domain includes objectives relating to interest, attitude, and values relating to learning the information. So the affective domain includes the feelings, the emotions, and attitudes of the individual. The categories of affective domain include receiving phenomena, responding to phenomena, valuing, organization, and as well as characterization. The next criteria is the validity. Validity is the degree to which score-based inference is appropriate, reasonable, and useful. What is validity in assessment? Validity is commonly understood as referring to the outcomes of an assessment and whether the evidence known about the assessment supports the way in which the results are used. Test users need to be sure that the particular assessment they are using is appropriate for the purpose they have identified. Validity has 6 types that has to be established. So we have now the types of validity. So the following 6 types of validity are popularly in use. These phase validity, content validity, predictive validity, concurrent, construct, and factorial validity. Out of this, the content, predictive, concurrent, and construct validity are the important ones used in the field of psychology and education. So we have first the content validity. So a process of matching the test items with the instructional objectives. So content validity is the most important criterion for the usefulness of a test, especially of an achievement test. It is also called as rational validity or logical validity or curricular validity or internal validity or intrinsic validity. So content validity is estimated by evaluating the relevance of the test. For example, the test items must duly cover all the content and behavioral areas of the trait to be measured. It gives idea of the subject matter or change in behavior. So this way, content validity refers the extent to which a test contains items representing the behavior that we are going to measure. The items of the test should include every relevant characteristic of the whole content area and objectives in right proportion. So suppose an achievement test in mathematics is prepared. It must contain items from algebra, arithmetic, geometry, mensuration, and trigonometry, and moreover, the items must measure the different behavioral objectives like knowledge, understanding, skill, application, and so on. So it is imperative that due weightage be given to different content area and objectives. Next, we have the phase validity. Phase validity, to the extent the test appears to measure what is to be measured. Phase validity refers to whether a test appears to be valid or not. So for example, from external appearance, whether the items appear to measure the required aspect or not. If a test measures what the test author desires to measure, we say that the test has phase validity. Thus, phase validity refers not to what the test measures, but what the test appears to measure. So for example, a test to measure skill in addition should contain only items on addition. When one goes through the items and feels that all the items appear to measure the skill in addition, then it can be said that the test is validated by phase. Next type of validity is the concurrent validity. Concurrent validity correlating the test scores with another set of criterion scores. Concurrent validity refers to the extent to which the test scores correspond to already established or accepted performance, known as criterion. To know the validity of a newly constructed test, it is correlated or compared with some available information. Thus, a test is validated against some concurrently available information. The scores obtained from a newly constructed test are correlated with pre-established test performance. Suppose we have prepared a test of intelligence. We administer it to a group of pupils. The Stanford Binet test is also administered to the same group. Now, test scores made on our newly constructed test and test scores made by pupils on the Stanford Binet intelligence test are correlated. If the coefficient of correlation is high, our intelligence test is said to have high concurrent validity. So that is about concurrent validity. Next is the predictive validity. Predictive validity is the extent to which test predicts the future performance of students. Predictive validity is concerned with the predictive capacity of a test. It indicates the effectiveness of a test in forecasting or predicting future outcomes in a specific area. The test user wishes to forecast an individual's future performance. Test scores can be used to predict future behavior or performance and hence called as predictive validity. Next, we have the discriminant validity. Discriminant validity is demonstrated by evidence that measures of constructs that theoretically should not be highly related to each other. In fact, not found to be highly correlated to each other. So for example, a performance-based measure of walking should be positively correlated with self-reported ability to walk a block. Next, we have the construct validity. Construct validity is the extent in which the test may be said to measure a theoretical construct or psychological variable. A construct is mainly psychological. Usually it refers to a trait or mental process. Construct validation is the process of determining the extent to which a particular test measures the psychological constructs that the test maker intends to measure. It indicates the extent to which a test measures the abstract attributes or qualities which are not operationally defined. So again, the extent to which the test measures the personality traits or mental processes as defined by the test maker is known as the construct validity of the test. Now let's move on to the fifth criteria, which is reliability. Assessment should show consistent and stable results. Reliability refers to the consistency of a measure. So for example, a test is considered reliable if we get the same result repeatedly. So for an instance, if your scale is off by 5 pounds, it reads your weight every day with an excess of 5 pounds. The scale is reliable because it consistently reports the same weight every day. But it is not valid because it adds 5 pounds to your true weight. Reliability can be measured using some methods. So here are the acronyms of the different methods that are used to measure reliability. So the first one is the test retake or retest method. So giving the same examination after several minutes to several years. So retest reliability is a measure of reliability obtained by administering the same test twice over a period of time to a group of individuals. So the scores from time 1 and time 2 can then be correlated in order to evaluate the test for stability over time. So for example, a test designed to assess student learning in psychology could be given to a group of students twice, with the second administration perhaps coming a week after the first. The obtained correlation coefficient would indicate the stability of the scores. Next, we have the split half. This is used to establish internal consistency using Person R formula. Split half reliability is another subtype of internal consistency reliability. So the process of obtaining split half reliability is begun by splitting in half all items of a test that are intended to probe the same area of knowledge in order to form 2 sets of items. The entire test is administered to a group of individuals, the total score for each set is computed, and finally the split half reliability is obtained by determining the correlation between the total score of the set scores. Next, we have the parallel form equivalency test. So it is giving the same examination within the day. So parallel forms reliability is a measure of reliability obtained by administering different versions of an assessment tool. So both versions must contain items that probe the same construct, skill, knowledge, base, and etc. to the same group of individuals. The scores from the 2 versions can then be correlated in order to evaluate the consistency of results across alternate versions. So for example, if you wanted to evaluate the reliability of a critical thinking assessment, you might create a large set of items that all pertain to critical thinking, and then randomly split the questions up into 2 sets, which would represent the parallel forms. Next, we have test of stability. So this is giving the same examination content but not in the same manner of form after several minutes to several years. We have now the measurement of stability and equivalence, means giving the same examination content but not in the same manner or form within the day. So stability is an aspect of reliability and is assessed by correlating the test scores of a group of individuals with scores on the same test, or an equated test taken by the same group at a later time. Let's proceed to Kutter-Richardson, establishing of reliability using KR21 and KR20 formulas. So the Kutter-Richardson coefficient of reliability, or KR20, is used to test the reliability of binary measurements such as exam questions to see if the items within the instruments obtain the same binary results over a population of testing subjects. Another criteria is the fairness. Assessment should give equal opportunities for every student. A system of well-constructed formative and summative assessments allows students to demonstrate their abilities and knowledge and then reflects how close they are to meeting educational goals and standards. Assessment should have no discrimination of any kind, such as racial, gender, age, and more. So promoting equality and diversity in education is essential for both teachers and students. The aim is to create a classroom environment where all students can thrive together and understand that individual characteristics make people unique and not different in a negative way. The seventh criteria is the authenticity. Assessment should touch real-life situations. Something practical is something effective in real situations. And remember that assessment should emphasize practicability. Practicability in assessment means that the test is easy to design, easy to administer, and easy to score. No matter how valid or reliable a test is, it has to be practical to make and to take. This means that it is economical to deliver. Next criteria, or the eighth criteria, is the practicality and efficiency. Assessment should have saved time, money, and others. So it's not unusual to hear that there are concerns about the lack of adequate time to do everything teachers need to do: plan, individualize instruction, test, assign grades, collaborate, innovate, reflect, and of course, teach. No one, not even teachers, can add more hours to a day. The key to finding more time each day may be to use strategies that make the most of your available time. Assessment should be resourceful. The ninth criteria is the continuity. Since assessment is an integral part of the teaching learning process, it should be continuous. Assessment should be continuous. Continuous assessment should be systematic, comprehensive, and cumulative and guidance-oriented. Continuous assessment is systematic in the sense that it is planned, graded to suit the age and experience of the students, and is given at suitable intervals during the school year. Continuous assessment can be regarded as a method of ascertaining what a student gains from schooling in terms of knowledge, industry, and character development, taking into account all his or her performances in tests, assignments, projects, and other educational activities during a given period of term, year, or during the entire period of an educational level. Let's proceed to the different assessment forms, such as placement assessment, formative assessment, diagnostic assessment, and lastly, summative assessment. What is placement assessment? Are done before the instruction to assess the needs of the learners to determine their capacities and capabilities. A placement test is a test given by a school to determine the academic or skill level of a student, especially a new student, in order to place them in the correct class. Students are required to take placement tests before registering. The next type of test or assessment is the formative assessment, wherein it is done during instruction to monitor students' progress and reinforce learning. So examples of formative assessment include asking students to draw a concept map in the class to represent their understanding of a topic, submit 1 or 2 sentences identifying the main point of a lecture, or turn in a research proposal for early feedback. Another assessment is the diagnostic assessment, wherein it is done to see the problems and learning difficulties of the students. So this method allows instructors and students to chart their learning progress by comparing pre- and post-test results. And lastly, the summative assessment, wherein it is done after the instruction to assess students' achievement and to see the result of teaching learning process. Examples of summative assessments include midterm exams, a final exam, or a final project. Summative assessments are given to students at the end of an instructional period. The 10th criteria of high-quality assessment is the ethics. Assessment should not be used to derogate the students. And let us take note that assessment confidentiality is a given right. Assessment's results should be communicated to the learners and the people involved. Communication should also be established between the teacher and the learners by way of pre- and post-test reviews. The second to the last criteria of high-quality assessment is a clear communication. Assessment results should be communicated to all people involved. Communicating assessment results is an integral part of classroom assessment. While teachers are certainly on the front lines when it comes to communicating with students about testing, we can't forget the important role that parents play in assessments as well. Talking to parents about assessment results is an important step in helping parents understand their child's growth, be a partner in goal setting, and generally give them a role in improving their child's learning. Assessment results can be communicated by pre-test and post-test reviews. Lastly is that assessment should bring positive consequences. Assessment should have a positive effect. One way to assure that assessment can have a positive impact on learning of students. Assessment should motivate students to learn and do more. Learning assessments provide students with effective feedback and potentially improve their motivation or self-esteem. Moreover, assessments of learning give students the tools to assess themselves and understand how to improve. Assessment should give way to improve the teacher's instruction. According to a 2010 white paper on teacher assessment and evaluation from the National Education Association or NEA, the purpose of assessment is twofold: to improve teachers' practice and enhance student learning. In addition, self-reflective educators can use their assessment skills to improve their own work by determining the effectiveness of their teaching performance. As they look beyond the immediate needs of the classroom, they may also assess how they need to grow and change in their career path. It also allows educators to reflect on the strategies they use in the classroom and identify areas of strength and need within their own techniques. So that ends our discussion about the 12 principles of high-quality assessment. So let us now recapitulate what we have discussed. So we talked about the 12 principles of high-quality assessments, which include: number 1, clarity of learning targets; 2nd, appropriateness of assessment methods; 3rd, balance; 4th, validity; 5th, reliability; and 6th, fairness; 7th, authenticity; 8th, practicality and efficiency; 9th, continuity; 10th, ethics; 11th, clear communication; and finally, positive consequences. So that ends my presentation. Thank you so much for lending your ears and giving your time to finish our meaningful discussion.